It promises to be another very busy week for President Obama, starting today with a summit on fiscal responsibility. And then on Thursday, he will present his first budget. CBS News senior White House correspondent Bill Plante joins us this morning. Good morning, Bill.
Morning, Maggie. The White House officials are saying that the president's budget will reflect the promises he made in the campaign, like expanded health care. But even so, that he wants to slash the budget deficit by half by the end of his first term.
I want you to know that regardless of our occasional differences, that in this very difficult time, my hope is that we can all work together.
Last night, Mr. Obama made his budget pitch to the nation's governors, the first of many audiences he'll ask for help as he takes on the mammoth budget deficit. Congressional budget analysts expect this year's deficit to reach $1.3 trillion, or about 8% of the economy. The Obama plan promises to cut that in half by the end of his first term to $533 billion, or 3% of the economy. To do it, the president will reduce Iraq war spending, end tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans, and streamline government. But he will also promise to end the practice of keeping some items, such as the cost of the Iraq war, out of the budget. Coupled with recent stimulus spending, that will mean dramatically higher deficit numbers.
And it'll be an honest budget. It will include the full costs of the wars for the year and not push those off into supplemental budgets.
And there may be even more to talk about at today's Fiscal Responsibility Summit. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the government is on the verge of buying an even larger stake in financially troubled Citigroup. Taxpayers could wind up owning as much as 40% of the common stock. Maggie?
Bill Plante at the White House. Thank you, Bill. Have it right here. Big story in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Joining us from Washington to talk about the president's first budget is Peter Orszag. He is director of the Office of Management and Budget. Peter, good morning to you. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Good morning.
Let me ask you about what Bill Plante just mentioned. I'm wondering if you know whether the administration is on board with this plan to expand an ownership stake in Citigroup.
Well, I'd rather not speak to the specifics of that. I think we have to remember we face both short-term difficulties like in the financial system, but we also have these medium and long-term fiscal deficits. And the latter point is what is the focus of our Fiscal Responsibility Summit today.
All right, so let's talk about the president's budget and his hopes to cut the deficit by half by the end of his first term. Is that a goal or a promise, Peter?
Well, you'll see in the budget that comes out on Thursday that we achieve that objective. And we do it without any gimmicks. I mean, for example, previous budgets would assume that there were no more hurricanes or disasters that ever hit the United States. And obviously that's not a particularly realistic basis for making budget projections. We're not going to do that.
Then how will you manage? I mean, every president comes in making promises. We remember famously President Bush promising budget cuts, and by the time he left, he had doubled the debt. Given how high the deficit is now and how much higher it'll go after the stimulus, how can you realistically do that?
Well, again, I think you mentioned some of the steps: winding down the war, some high-income revenue, and closing down corporate tax loopholes. And then something that we are announcing today also, a very important rule, pay-go, this very simple, common-sense thing that if you're going to propose something new, you're going to pay for it to make sure you don't worsen the deficit.
But for example, one place that you said we're going to save money on is in Iraq, but how much will that be offset by increasing our presence in Afghanistan?
Well, again, you're going to see the specific numbers on Thursday, but there will be a significant net reduction overall, especially as we move out beyond next year.
In the last seconds, we know that Republicans, almost no Republicans supported the stimulus. Do you think that you'll find common ground with the Republicans with this budget?
I do, and one of the reasons is we're going to focus this year on health care, and I think on that issue there is a lot of bipartisan interest in trying to bend the curve on health care costs and get the system to become much more efficient.
Peter Orszag, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.